So in the same spirit of openness and dialogue, if I may ask you about two controversies that have been sparked off in your last few days in your tenure. So the first was about you praying with the Prime Minister, the photographs and the videos that came out and raised questions. And you have said that there is a maturity in the system, that the executive and judiciary can interact, and there should not be and there need not be questions about any deals being struck or judicial verdicts being influenced. But Justice Chandrachud, the problem, the objections that have been raised have to do with the fact that there is a political context in which these photographs appeared. The same Prime Minister was almost functioning like the head priest at the consecration of the Ayodhya temple in January. There is a message that could go down the line to the district judiciary, because these are times also where a very strong executive has led to the blurring of lines, that the separation of powers as well. There is an executive that weaponizes its mandate or has a winner-takes-all attitude. So in that context, those photographs raised concern.
Certainly. Thank you for asking me this question, actually, because I sometimes feel I don't have a platform to speak, because judges predominantly speak through their judgments. First and foremost, at a doctrinal level, the separation of powers concept does not postulate that the judiciary and the executive are antagonistic in the sense that they will not meet or that they will not engage in a reasoned dialogue. In the states, there is a very well-established protocol in several states, including states where I have served as a judge and then as a Chief Justice, of the Chief Justice and the Administrative Committee of the High Court meeting the Chief Minister, and on the next occasion, the Chief Minister meeting the Chief Justice in their residence. And in most of these meetings, for instance, when I took over as Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court, you're discussing basic issues which concern the judiciary: budgeting, infrastructure, homes for the district judges, new courtrooms, technology. And because the budget, we have to realize, comes from the executive. And unless you talk to, well, you could do that on paper and then wait for the next 5 years to get your issues resolved. There's a question of prioritizing your projects. So, there is this very robust dialogue which takes place between the executive and the judiciary on the administrative side, which has nothing to do with the judicial work which you do as judges. That's one thing which I must clarify. What the separation of powers postulates is that the judiciary should not be performing the role of the executive, which is defining policies, because the power to frame policies belongs to the government. The court can decide on the legitimacy, the constitutional validity of a policy or a legislation. Likewise, the executive doesn't decide cases. The legislature doesn't decide cases. The court doesn't frame laws. That's the essence of the separation of powers doctrine. And I think so long as we have this in mind, and there is a realization that, in fact, there are areas, the doyen of the bar, when we had a little bit of an impasse at the beginning of my tenure as Chief Justice of India on certain issues, particularly appointments, Mr. Fali Nariman said, well, why doesn't the Chief Justice have a dialogue with the law minister? And, the doyen of the bar saying that carried a lot of weight. The point of the matter is that dialogue does take place, and it has to take place. And why is that dialogue necessary? You're dealing with the careers of people, you're dealing with the lives of people who are going to enter the judiciary, or those who are already in the judiciary who are going to go higher. There are things which you have to discuss in person. Now, we have to accept, therefore, the fact that there is a great amount of dialogue which must take place as a part of a robust interinstitutional mechanism for the exchange of views. And this has nothing to do with the way we decide cases. Over the last 75 years, that's a tradition which has evolved, which is that you don't discuss about pending cases. That's been my experience in the high courts. That's been my experience in the Supreme Court as well. That is the first aspect which you asked me. On the fact that, the Prime Minister visited my home for a purely private event, it was not a public event. Well, I do feel that, there was absolutely nothing wrong for the simple reason that these are continuing meetings between the judiciary and the executive, even at a social level. We meet in Rashtrapati Bhavan. We meet on the occasion of the 26th of January, on the 15th of August, when an incoming Chief Justice is coming, when an outgoing Chief Justice is going, when, a foreign head of state is visiting. And you are in conversation with ministers, you are in conversation with the Prime Minister, you are in conversation with the President, with the Vice President. Now, these conversations do not involve conversations about the cases which we decide, but conversations about life and society in general. For instance, when I'm sitting next to a foreign head of state, or I'm engaging in a conversation with maybe a senior minister, I would probably ask them something very interesting about world affairs. So there has to be this sense of maturity in the political system to understand this and to trust our judges. Because ultimately, the work which we do is evaluated by our written word. Everything that we decide is, unlike, say, many other systems, not kept in the wraps. Our reasons are open to scrutiny. Why we have decided a case is open to scrutiny.